Okay, so we are live now, and I can see people joining us. So we'll wait for a couple of minutes whilst we gather our guests today, and then I will
Okay.
make an introduction. So, no, it's very interesting what you were saying, Sebas, about the natural ecosystem and fire management, and how fire is part of the
Yeah.
natural ecosystem as well.
Yeah. But that likely we don't have as many now
Yes.
as in the last three years. Yeah.
Well, we'll give it another couple of minutes and then I can
Okay.
get underway with introductions. So welcome those that have already arrived, and we won't keep you waiting too much longer. Right, I think we can begin now. So, hello and welcome everyone. I'm Duncan Grossard of Journeys with Purpose, and we're delighted to have you join us today and share one of the world's greatest stories of rewilding, habitat and wildlife restoration, and local communities development. Leading our fireside chat is Professor Alastair Driver, UK rewilding expert. Alastair was appointed as the first conservationist for the Thames catchment in 1984 and went on to become the National Head of Conservation of the Environment Agency in the UK for 15 years. Since 2016, he has immersed himself in the new challenge of mainstreaming rewilding as a crucially important part of the solution to nature recovery in Britain. Also noteworthy is that he is a sportsman of renown and a very well-travelled traveller. In conversation with Alastair is Sebastián Di Martino. Since the age of 13, Sebastián has been participating in environmental organisations. He has a genuine and deep passion for nature conservation, which he has adopted as a way of life. A biologist with a master's in management of natural protected areas, he has worked in Argentina as the technical director of protected areas in Neuquén province for the Wildlife Conservation Society and as a consultant to the National Parks Administration. Since 2015, he's been the conservation director for Rewilding Argentina and is in charge of the reintroduction of species and environmental restoration carried out in Iberá National Park and the other parks and areas throughout the country. Rewilding Argentina's work, the legacy of Doug and Chris Tompkins, is the gold standard globally. And so without further ado, over to you, Alastair and Sebas. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Duncan.
Yeah.
Sebas, I've got so many questions for you.
Okay.
We'll rattle through them. I think I've got to start at the beginning, though. I'd just like to find out a little bit more about how you got inspired into nature. For me, when I was a kid, I was on the coattails of my dad, traipsing around the countryside, studying birds. As soon as I could walk, I was feeding off him. How did you get engaged in
Well,
nature?
I think it was kind of the same. Since I was very young, I was sick about nature. I knew since I was a little kid that I was going to be a biologist. Of course, my father and my mother has to do a lot with this. My father was a paleontologist, so we were with my brothers and sisters digging a lot in the middle of the countryside looking for fossils. And although my mother was a mathematician, she liked very much to spend the vacations on camping sites in national parks, mostly in Patagonia. So I think that's where my passion starts to grow. Yeah. So
would you call yourself an ecologist? I mean, or a naturalist, a conservation?
No, I am a biologist because I study biology, but really I don't work anymore as a biologist. I maybe more a conservationist. Yeah, I have to deal. In Rewilding Argentina, we have an incredible group of biologists that do more like the science aspects of rewilding. We have incredible veterinarians. And what I do mostly is I deal with a lot of things to keep the rewilding projects running. But it's like I am, I don't know, going away from biology. But I like it, so it's not a problem. Yeah.
Great. Well, so tell us a bit about Rewilding Argentina. I did a bit of homework today. founded in 2010, is that right? And that's sort of legacy of the Tompkins work.
Yeah, really, we started with Chris and Doug Tompkins. They started working in Argentina in 1998, so a long time ago. That's when they bought the first ranch here in Iberá. Right now, I am in Corrientes province, where Iberá is located. I am very close to the Iberá Park, where we have our big rewilding project. And yeah, they at the beginning, they started in Chile a few years before, then they moved also to Argentina. And yeah, when Doug died, that was 2015, we started like an independence process from Tompkins Conservation, and now Rewilding Argentina is a completely independent and national NGO, but we continue the work of Doug and Chris. We share the same objectives or very similar. We share the same values. That is maybe the most important. So yeah, we try to continue their work and to give scale. That is also one thing that we would like to do, to work in more places with the same vision. Yeah.
Yeah. So talking of scale, how big are you as an organization, and do you have a central office and then people scattered in different projects?
We have a central office in Buenos Aires, but really it's tiny. There are like 10 persons working there. And then most of our staff, we are like 200 persons now working for Rewilding Argentina. So I don't know, we are not a big NGO. Maybe for Argentina it's kind of big, but maybe medium size. So, but most of our staff, like 90% of them, they live in the parks where we run the projects. That is very the idea of Doug and Chris. When they wanted to do conservation in Argentina and Chile, they moved to Argentina and Chile. They became neighbors of the place, and that's one of the values that we want to keep. So yeah, most of our staff are young Argentinians between 25 to 35 years old, and all of them, the ones that are running the rewilding projects or working with communities or with the control of threats inside the parks, they all live inside the parks. Doug's always said that conservation has to be done in the territory, that there's nothing more political than the territory, so you cannot do it from an office. An office has not too much of politics. So, and he always said that conservation was like going every day into a small battle inside a war on that territory. So, and I that's one of the things that I like of this organization, that we are working in the field. Actually, I don't have a house. I move between projects. I only have one carry-on, and I oversee the different projects that we have. And yeah, that's yeah, exactly. That's the way of life. Yeah,
so that's nice. Interesting. So you know, a key focus is to be part of the communities where you are working.
Yeah, exactly.
Outsiders coming in, you know, people what to do. You've got to be growing with that community.
Yeah, exactly. When you work in these kind of projects, you are always learning. And one of the things that we learned that it was kind of obvious is that you cannot do this kind of conservation without the support of the community. Because our work, the main objective of Rewilding Argentina is to restore complete and fully functional ecosystems. So we want natural places with all the species that were typical of that place and went extinct in the last 500 years. That is when the Europeans came to America. So the precise time, the time frame in America is kind of precise about the last mass extinction of wildlife. It started 500 years ago. So we want to bring back mostly big predators, big herbivores, big fruit eaters that are the big species, the big mammals, big birds, big reptiles that are the ones that went extinct mostly. And for doing so, we need to create big parks, because you need to have a big territory in which you do this kind of rewilding with these big species, big mammals, as I said. To have a big park and to bring back species that for some reasons went extinct in the past, I don't know, 100, 200 years, you need to have social support. that then it turns into political support. And how we build that support is working with the communities. So the communities see in the park that is being created and in the wildlife that is coming back, an opportunity for job creation, an opportunity for development, so an opportunity for well-being. So that is key. That is our model in every place that we work: park creations, restoration, and communities. Yeah.
So can I just check? So the land ownership doesn't change then? Whoever owns the land when you arrive remains.
No, when we arrive to places that they have very marginal economies, mostly based on cattle ranching, sometimes logging, but mostly cattle ranching. It's like, I always say that in Argentina, we have the Pampas grasslands. That's a perfect place for cattle and crops. But then we export that same model to every ecosystem that we have. And sometimes the ecosystems are not as good as the Pampas. So we start to degrade the ecosystems to have cattle. We force the ecosystems. We were talking about about how much fire we put into the Iberá grasslands in order to turn them into a good place for cattle, or how we cut the forests of El Impenetrable in the dry Chaco to turn those forests into a good place for cattle. So we destroy the natural ecosystems to have a marginal economy that really the people continues to be poor in those places because it's a very marginal activity. So when we come, we buy big ranches. In Argentina, Argentina is a big country with very few people. So the properties are kind of big. Here in Iberá, maybe there are 20,000 hectares. In Patagonia, you can have ranches of 50,000, even 100,000 hectares, so really big. And then those are the places that are going to turn into a national park. Yeah, so at the end of the story, we donate the land to the National Park Service. So we donated already 500,000 hectares in Argentina to create or expand 7 national parks on land. Also, we convince the government, when we buy a ranch, we try to look that there's fiscal land in nearby. So when we donate the land, we tell the government, okay, we are going to donate this, but then you add this fiscal land and together we can create a much bigger park. So that's the idea is kind of a leverage that we do with the land. So yeah, but at the property of the land changes. It turns from private to public. Yeah. And that is also very important for the economic model that we develop because we work with local people and local people, the work that they do mostly is they become guides. Guides of nature and mostly of wildlife watching. So they need a place where they can guide the tourists. And if there's no public land, they don't have access to any territory because local people, they don't have big pieces of land. They have tiny pieces of land. So to have a park with public access where the local people can enter to see the wildlife with the tourists, we train them to become a guide for trekking, horseback riding, canoeing, kayaking, different things. But we need a public place with public use. If not, we cannot develop the model.
Understood. So, but what happens to the people who own the ranches? Are they, well, first of all, are they selling willingly or is it?
Yeah. All of them, they sell because they want to sell. Yeah, exactly. But at the beginning, of course, there's something, not now, but with the first project that was this one in Iberá, and also because the heads of the NGO were 2 Americans, that started a big controversy here because what are 2 Americans doing here buying big pieces of land? They are saying that they were going to donate these lands to the government. No one believed that because also in Argentina, there's not a philanthropy culture and less with nature, sometimes with culture, or helping to feed people or to build schools, something like that, yes. But there's not a conservation philanthropy in Argentina. So it was, for the people, it was more reasonable to think that Doug and Chris were going to steal the freshwater reserves of Argentina, or they were going to put military bases for the US, rather than thinking that they were going to donate the land to the government. that was more more incredible than anything else. So all the tales were, and we like conspiracy here in Argentina. So all these tales about conspiracy were perfect. But then at the end, Dan and Chris, they donate the land. So all those voices, they have nothing to do. And now when we start similar projects, yeah, there's always kind of reaction at the beginning because people really don't understand until we can explain what we are expecting to do. But it's much, the reaction is smaller because there's already the Iberá example, or El Impenetrable, where we donate 128,000 hectares to create a park. And so it's kind of easier. The conflicts are not so big, but there's always conflict. It's because of the territory, like Doug said.
So, so you mentioned a couple of projects there. Impenetrable sounds amazing. I just, that very name makes me just want to go there and explore.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell us about, how many big projects have you got across the country, and give us a flavor of some of them.
Yeah, right now we have 4 big projects. One here in Iberá, that is this subtropical grasslands. Iberá is like a big wetlands. We always say that it's very similar to Pantanal in Brazil. Then we have another one, El Impenetrable, in the dry Chaco. These are dry forests, incredible, very beautiful. It's a kind of dry landscape, but there we have the Bermejo River, that is maybe the last really wild river of Argentina, the last big wild river of Argentina, with no dams, almost no people living along the river. And then we have 2 projects in Patagonia. One by the ocean, in the Atlantic Ocean, where we are trying to do restoration of the marine environment mostly. And then another one near the Andes, near the border with Chile, that we call it the Patagonia Park project. So these are the 4 main projects. We would like to have more. We are trying to grow, but so far these are the big ones. Then maybe we have some smaller projects in which there's an opportunity for buying land in a place where the government wants to create a national park. So we quickly buy the land and we donate the land because there's this political will to create the park. So we don't develop the entire model, but we prefer to run this complete model about, as I said, park creations, wildlife restoration, and the work with the communities to create a new economy and to improve the well-being of the communities.
Just say a little bit more about the marine park. I mean, what sort of things happen? Is that about no take, absolutely no take fishing? And again, we would that with tourism.
We would like to do that, to create in Argentina. We didn't have marine national parks until recently. We passed a law for marine national parks recently, and then we create 2 big marine national parks, but in a place where there's no conflict with fisheries, because there's very little fishing activity in those places. So it was kind of easy. Although it was not easy, there was not a big fight with the fishing industry. And then Argentina is also a federal country. This is something that you have to consider, because we have 24 provinces. The provinces are very autonomous. They are very independent. And the natural resources, they all belong to the provinces in Argentina. So if you want to create a national park, then first you have to get a permit of the province by law that allows the creation of a national park. And then you can create the national park. And the provinces don't like the nation. So they don't want to create national parks usually. They say we can create state parks or provincial parks. We can do it by ourselves. We know the national park system is much better than the provincial systems. So that's why also we need to create all these economies around the park. Because if the province don't see that the national park brings jobs and brings development to the area, then they don't like to give a permit to the nation. I was saying that because in the sea is the same. Until the first 12 miles, the jurisdiction of the sea is for the provinces. And then from the 12 to the 200 is only the nation. So where we are working in the ocean, we need to convince in part the province and in part the nation to create a big no-take area, but in a place where there's a lot of fisheries. Some species went completely like extinct because of fishing, like the hake, and now they are fishing shrimp a lot. But well, yeah, it's a project that we just started, but the main idea is to create a big no-take area, a big national park no-take, and yes, try to restore the marine ecosystem. That is much more complex than restoring land. Yeah.
Yeah, but in the UK, I think generally speaking, we need to buy out those fisheries. You know, they have to be bought out. Is it a bit like buying a ranch, I suppose? Is that the same process there?
No, I don't think so. No. No, the fishing places also, they change a lot because the shrimps or the hake moves. So sometimes you have a fishing place. But I don't know if I understood well your question, but you say that you have to buy the rights.
Yeah, that's right. They have rights to fish, and so the only way one can stop it here is to actually buy out those rights.
No. Here here you can create no-take areas, even in places where you already gave the concessions. Yeah,
right,
exactly.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah.
So let's come to Iberá because you know, we got this trip there later in the year. You know, I'm really excited about that. When did you first visit, and what was your first impression of visiting the area?
The first time I was in Iberá, it was in 1994, a long time ago. I was a student and I had the opportunity to go to Antarctica for several months to work there. So when I came back, I had all my salary on the bank account because you cannot waste your money in Antarctica. So that's when I bought my first car, and the first trip I did was to Iberá in 1994. The Tompkins were not still there.
On your own?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was an unpaved road at that time. I went with 3 friends. One of them is now the scientific director, the science director of Rewilding Argentina. So that trip was a good one.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was an incredible place. There was nothing. There was a small village, Colonia Pellegrini, that now at that time it was a place with only a few houses. Most of the people were leaving the village to big cities. Most of the people were public employees. Some of them work in cattle ranches or in forestry places. Women, usually they didn't have work. And now you see Pellegrini and it's a completely different place. Young people is coming back. They live completely on nature tourism based on wildlife watching. They are the biggest supporters of the return of the jaguars in Iberá. They were the big supporters to create the national park when the province was still reluctant to create the park. And also at that time, when I visited for the first time, there were no camping sites. We just put the tent in any place. And I remember we were very excited because we saw one marsh deer that it was kind of very difficult to see at that time. And now you go to Iberá, and there are thousands of them. It's incredible how that species recovered, just getting rid of threats, because there we didn't have to do any reintroduction project, but now Iberá is one of the strongholds of marsh deer. And actually we have now projects to take marsh deers out from Iberá to repopulate other places. So that is one of the incredible stories of Iberá. I think that it was a place completely decimated of wildlife. We needed to bring anteaters, pampas deer, collared peccary, jaguars, everything. And the species that were still there were in very low numbers. But now Iberá is a source of wildlife to help recover other places that are in the same condition that Iberá was 20 years ago. So that is one of the things that excites me most. That thing, yeah.
So so the main degradation impact had come from decades of agriculture, had it? Was that the primary reason why?
In Iberá?
Yeah.
No, in Iberá it was mostly cattle, some rice fields, yes, that they pumped water from the wetland, but it was mostly cattle and fires associated with cattle.
That's
as
management.
I said,
that's deliberate.
Exactly.
Burning
Yeah.
Great young
fires
grass.
are natural. Yeah, fires are natural in Iberá, but because we have thunderstorms, but you have in the same place one fire every 5 years, I don't know, 6 years. And the cattle, the ranchers, they put fire several times per year in the same grasslands. So that destroys the natural grasslands. And also, most of the people were people that hunted for feathers or skins or of wildlife, no, and that was one of the main economies. But in the 80s or the 90s, all the fashion for that kind of products was gone, so there was not a market anymore. Also, the place was decimated, and that's one of the nice stories in Iberá is that most of the hunters inside the wetland, here they have a special word for them. They are the mariscadores because they are like gauchos, but they live inside the wetland. So they don't ride horses. They are in canoes that they push with this big stick because you cannot paddle inside the wetland because there's so much vegetation. Yes. So those are the mariscadores, and many of the mariscadores, they became the first rangers of the park.
They knew the
park. Yeah, exactly, because they have a lot of knowledge about the wetland, and Iberá is an incredible big wetland. The park is 756,000 hectares. That I think is 1.3 million square. I don't know the unit that you use.
I should say,
exactly.
Sebastián, for any UK listeners on this webinar, I look to see how big is 760,000 hectares. Well, it's bigger than our second biggest county in England, with Lincolnshire. It's not quite as big as Yorkshire, but it's big. It would be the second biggest county in England, an astonishing scale, way beyond anything we can dream of here.
So and that is also the kind of places that you need to rewild also, because if you want to have the big predators like the jaguars back, or it's better if you can do it in smaller places, but then you need more management to sustain that ecosystem. When you have a big territory, it's kind of easier, or at least you need to intervene much less. That's what we would like to happen.
So let's come on to reintroductions. Here in the UK, I collect a lot of data on behalf of the organisation I work for, Rewilding Britain, and reintroductions are one of, I think I've logged nearly 30 different types of intervention to kickstart the recovery of natural processes and healthy ecosystems. Reintroductions are just one of those, and they're a relatively small element at the moment, because we're so scared of reintroducing things like beaver links.
But
for you guys, it's a big part of the rewilding process, isn't it?
I think it's the reintroductions, and mostly of the iconic project here is the Jaguar reintroduction project. That happened also because of Doug Tompkins. Because when Doug bought the first ranch in Iberá in 1998, is because he was already thinking about bringing back the Jaguar, because he was so much involved with the rewilding movement in the US, with the return of the wolves to Yellowstone, that he said there should be a project like this in South America. So the first time, or one of the first times that he came to Argentina, and he flew over Iberá because he liked to fly a lot. He was an incredible pilot. He saw that incredible wetland completely empty, and he said, this is a perfect place to bring back the Jaguar. And because I am telling this because all these incredible ideas usually happen when someone comes from the outside with the ideas. The locals, we are always thinking about that will be impossible. There will be so much opposition. But then you have a foreigner that opens your mind with an incredible vision. That was Doug. And that's how it started, really, the reintroduction of the Jaguar. Of course, one of the things that we said is we cannot start directly with the Jaguar because in Argentina, even in Latin America, we don't have the culture of reintroduction. So, and you cannot start with a big predator like the Jaguar. It was too much controversial. So we started with the giant anteater, that it was a species that also went extinct in the entire province of Corrientes. We said there was going to be more support. Nobody sees the anteater as a conflict animal. So also there were, we always said that one of the reasons was that there were not big research groups working with the anteater, because sometimes that's from where the opposition comes to do all these things. So it was a species that nobody was paying too much attention. So it was going to be kind of easier to get the permits to start working with the anteaters. And that's how it happened. We started with the anteaters, not talking about the Jaguar, although the Jaguar was on the environment.
When
then
was that? When was that roughly,
Sebas?
Yeah. Roughly when was that you started on the anteater reintroduction?
2007. Yeah, 2007. Yeah, and really it was a very successful project. Now the anteaters are all over Iberá. We have several generations of anteaters. Really, we are estimating. We have some estimators for abundance, but really we cannot tell a precise number, but there are many. And also they are leaving Iberá already. We recorded anteaters more than 100 kilometers from Iberá in Corrientes province. And recently, a group of Brazilian biologists recorded an anteater in Rio Grande do Sul. Rio Grande do Sul is the southernmost state of Brazil, in which the anteater went extinct 130 years ago. And we are almost sure that that anteater comes from Iberá. It's part of the population of Iberá that is spreading. So that is also an incredible story. It's
international cooperation without knowing it.
Yeah, exactly. No, and we work a lot with the Brazilians and the organizations. Most of the Jaguars that we brought to the project, they come from the ones that we are releasing, they come from Brazil or Paraguay. So those projects without those countries would be impossible to run.
I found out today, by the way, that I have been to the next Jaguar Rehabilitation Center near Brasilia by sheer coincidence. I didn't know. I was researching more about you today that we got some of your Jaguars from there. I went there.
Yeah, exactly.
Back in 2015, I visited. Amazing setup. Fantastic. It's great to know some of them are actually able to be released back into the wild.
Yeah, exactly. The first male that we release is a wild male that comes from Pantanal. Also, the story of that animal is incredible because it was a juvenile jaguar that appeared crossing the Paraguay River, that is the biggest river in Pantanal, and he was swimming in very bad condition, and he arrived to a school where and conservation NGO was working with the school children and the teachers. So they immediately called the government to try to save that jaguar that was in very bad condition. And it was recovered. Yeah, the government came. The jaguar has the same name of the school, of that school. Chateau Bacinho is the name. So that animal was rescued in this rehabilitation center, in this reintroduction center that you are mentioning. And then he came from Brazil to Argentina. So that jaguar is, is very well known in Brazil and in Argentina. Is kind of the symbol of a cooperation between the two countries. Yeah. And it's
fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
And do you radio collar them? So do you know where they're moving to and keep
exactly.
track of them?
All the jaguars that we release them with a collar that has a GPS device that connects every day through a satellite with our computers. And also they have a VHF device, so we can track them from the ground. So yeah, with the Jaguars that were released, we really know where they are, and we can follow them. We know when the females give birth, because we start to receive a lot of points in the same place.
Yeah,
exactly. We can also know what they are eating, because also when they hunt, they stay some hours or sometimes 2 or 3 days eating on the same prey. So you get also like 4 or 5 points on that same place, and you can go there and see what they are eating. And when they have cubs, the females, they send a lot of points from the same place. It's kind of easy to know. But the ones that are born in the wild, and luckily we have many now, those ones, they don't have a collar, of course. And we try to capture them and to collar them when they are like 2.5 years old. So some of them are already collared, but some others, they are not collared because they are not big enough, or because we couldn't capture them yet. So we monitor them through camera traps or things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So what roughly speaking, how many have you released, and roughly what is the population now, and what kind of area does it now cover?
We release a total of 9 Jaguars. 5 of them were adults, and 4 of them were cubs that we released with the mothers. Because, one of our main concerns at the beginning was that the Jaguars should stay inside the park, so they don't start to run and to leave the park boundaries. So we think that if we release a male, the males, they set the territories based on prey availability and also based on females. So if we release a male at the beginning, that male probably will start to walk a lot looking for females. So at the beginning, we release 3 adult females. And also the first 2, we released them with cubs that were 3-4 months old. The cubs were born in captivity in these big pens that we have. Sometimes the pens are like 30 hectares big, so they are really big. So they live like they were wild. The cubs were born on those places, so they were like wild Jaguars. And the female left with the cubs that were big enough to follow the mother, but not so big to follow the mother big distances. So the mothers, they explore the territory, the females, little by little. That's what we wanted. And once we had 3 of these adult females, 2 of them with 2 cubs each, anchor inside the park, that's when we released the first male. So the male stayed in the territory and he visited all the females. Right now we have, as far as we know, at least 21 Jaguars. So we started exactly 3 years ago releasing. In January 2021, we released the first female with the 2 cubs. And 3 years later, we have 21 Jaguars living in Iberá. That maybe it's not a big number, but you have to consider that in Argentina, there are 250 Jaguars left. So it's like 10% of the population of the country. And maybe now Iberá is the national park that has more Jaguars inside than any other. We have also 3 other national parks with Jaguars, but the estimates, they say that they have between 10 to 15 Jaguars each, and Iberá has at least 21. So yeah, it's
and are there any
really
issues? Any issues at all?
No, nothing. No. The Jaguars are staying inside the park. They are eating mostly on capybaras. It's like 60% of the prey are capybaras.
Yeah.
30% is feral pigs. It's an exotic species inside Iberá. And then you have deers, foxes, caimans, I don't know, armadillos. But we don't have not a record of Jaguars killing cattle. Although there are still some gauchos inside, in like islands inside the park that have cattle, and they know the Jaguars. The Jaguars have been in their properties, but never killed one. And now I was talking with you about the the first jaguar that started to walk a little bit more.
Yes.
He left, is a young male that left the park. He's still inside the Iberá reserve, that is private property surrounding the park with some kind of management. But really the animal is walking little by little a lot, is exploring, is what the young males do.
Mhm.
He's less than 2 years old. And he didn't prey on any cattle yet. So yeah, people is tranquil about that. We already know all the neighbors. We've been working with them a lot to prepare them for when the jaguars arrive. So yeah, it's a nice story of people sending you the pictures of the jaguar footprint on the sand, saying the animal is here, so they take care about the animal. They tell us. So it's a nice story. Really, the Corrientes people are the ones that deserve most of the credits for the return of the jaguar, because without the social support and really all the mayors of the towns surrounding the communities, the local people, I don't know, the priest of the small towns, they were all asking.
You get schools engaged in
Yeah. The schools, you mean?
Yeah, schools, education.
Yeah. And most of the names of the jaguar that were born in Iberá were chosen by school kids. Yeah, they are like linked.
Yes, absolutely.
And some of the names also by the neighbors. So they know every jaguar by name. So yeah,
that's great to hear.
It's something that we need to learn to coexist with big predators.
Absolutely.
But it's one of the key things. If we want to have big predators living on this planet, then it's like we need to respect. We need to give them a place and coexist. Yeah, even if sometimes it's like is there some conflict? Yeah.
I mean, obviously I'm involved in discussions about reintroduction of lynx, lynx into Britain. We haven't had that species for over 1,000 years, so it's quite hard work. But I wanted to ask you, because one of the arguments for reintroducing lynx is that they will help to suppress numbers of deer, because we reckon we have more deer in Britain than ever in history, because there are no natural apex predators, and we don't really shoot many these days, and we don't eat much venison. Are you noticing at all an impact, or do you expect a more of a balanced herbivore population, particularly feral and the deer species? Do you expect to see that redress that balance?
Yeah, and we are trying to evaluate that. We are working with a lot of researchers, a lot of scientists from Argentinian universities or the research council of the country, and also from a university from other countries, because we expect that the jaguars will have an impact on the capybara population. Both they will have some impact on the numbers, but also on the behavior of the capybaras. Usually the carnivores that are ambush hunters, like the cats, the jaguar, what they change a lot the behavior of the prey, because the prey avoid the places where they can be easily hunted.
The fear factor.
Exactly. It's more than, you notice that more like in other carnivores. With wolves, you don't notice that so much, because the wolves, they don't ambush the prey, they run behind the prey until they hunt. But the jaguars, they stay in a place where they can hide, so the animals start to avoid those places. So based on these two assumptions, we think that the landscape of Iberá will start to change, because the grazing impact will start to decrease in some places, maybe increase in others. But yeah, we are trying to measure capybara abundance and behavior, also other prey. We are trying to measure changes on vegetation and also on carbon sequestration, because if the pressure of herbivory goes down, then the vegetation will be in a better shape. It will sequester more carbon through photosynthesis. So we are trying also to evaluate that, because it's something that we expect to happen. And also because from an opportunistic way, the environmental crisis that is on the political agenda is the climate change. It's not the biodiversity crisis. So if you don't link rewilding or the biodiversity crisis with climate change, it's more difficult to get political attention to these activities. So, and yeah, that's one of the things that we would like to do. So we are working on that, yeah.
Okay, well, soon I have to move. I'm going to move to some questions
okay.
from others. But before I do that, I just want to, you kind of touched on monitoring and future monitoring. Well, you know, what are the big exciting plans for the future? I mean, you're already doing lots of amazing work. What's the big new things coming up? Any big new sites that you're planning to work on?
Yeah, we have a lot of plans. Some are like more crazy, some others are more realistic. But of course, one of the things that we need to do is we need to finish rewilding Iberá, because some species, they already have sustainable populations, like the anteater, the pampas deer, the collared peccary. Some others, they are starting to have populations that sustain themselves, like the jaguars or the red and green macaw or the bare-faced curassow. But there are others that we didn't even release any individual, like the giant otter. We are building the family groups. The giant otter is the biggest otter in the world. It went completely extinct in Argentina.
Yeah.
So we are bringing the founders, mostly from zoos in Europe. So we are in pre-release pens, in very big pens that are half in the water, half on land. We are building the family groups that we are going to release. We already have almost 4 family groups. We would like to have 5. So, but the idea is we need to finish Iberá. But then, as I mentioned before, we are seeing that Iberá can help restore other places. It went from decimation to be a place that is it has a lot of wildlife. So we think that right now we can translocate anteaters, collared peccaries, pampas deer, marsh deers, many species from Iberá to other places. And in the near future, we will be able to repopulate other places with jaguars. We are already doing something like that in El Impenetrable. We are hoping to start releasing the first jaguars in El Impenetrable. So changing from being a sink of wildlife like it was Iberá to a source of wildlife, that is one of our main objectives. So we want to scale our projects and start to repopulate other areas, even in different ecoregions, like not only working in the Chaco, but maybe also in the Mata Atlántica, and also in the rainforest of northwestern Argentina. And also we are talking a lot with organizations in Brazil, in Paraguay, Uruguay, so we can develop a regional vision for rewilding. Yeah. So that's one of the things that we would like to have. So we are working towards that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm so envious of you. I mean, you know, you're a whole different level.
Yeah, but you already have many. You have a lot of cooperation inside Europe, moving animals from one place to another. You are not like Africa, maybe, but much
mainland
more
Europe,
than in Latin America.
Europe, so
much more than in Latin America.
Yeah. So I should move on now to a few questions from the audience.
Okay.
So there's a couple of political questions, really. You know, this one, so much volatility, you know, changing president in Argentina. How were you and the team able to navigate the regulatory framework challenges? How do you think new government's going to impact on your conservation work?
Yeah, I mean, in Argentina, we move from one crisis to another. So we are used to have this kind of crisis. And although this president that we have now is kind of particular, we have to say, it's always like that. I mean, we have some periods of stability and then periods of crisis. It's the story of the country. So we are kind of used to that. And one thing is, of course, with some parties or some presidents or some leaders, there are more opportunities. But what we always think is that it mostly depends on us. Because if we think that it depends on another person, so we try to do our best, we try to do what we know how to do, and not think too much on what is going to be the external factors affecting us. Of course, we consider those external factors, but not as a thing that, oh, now we are not be able to do what we wanted. No, we have to convince, we need to see opportunities. There are always setbacks, but there are always opportunities. So maybe these next 4 years with this president, I don't know, we need to find which the opportunities are, that for sure there are some, and move on that way. And maybe some other plans that we have will be, I don't know, set apart a little bit, or maybe, as I said, Argentina is a federal country, so you can work with the provincial governments also, not only with the nation. So maybe we will not, if this administration is not willing to work with us, that I think they will do. But if they don't, then we can work with the provincial governments. So there's always, if you have a proactive agenda, a positive agenda, then it's in your hands. I mean, it's not too much dependent on who's the president or whatever.
And of course, you've got these good news stories, not only about biodiversity recovery and mitigating climate change, but also jobs, socioeconomic benefits that are emerging from these projects. So are you seeing, have you noticed a shift in attitudes in the wider public? I mean, obviously within the parks that you're working in, do you think it's that influence is spilling out into the wider public arena?
Yeah, I mean, you can notice that on the small towns surrounding the project where we work. Also, I think there's a change of mind in the people that live in cities. In Argentina, most of the people live in cities. It's more than 90% of the people in Argentina live in cities, very few in the countryside. Yeah. So you need to reach that people. I think it's kind of changing. I always envy you because the rewilding movement in the UK is so popular. I mean, it's not I think it's, in Argentina, it has nothing to do with what is happening in Britain, I think, where there's a lot of initiatives. Even every person is trying to do something in their place, in their gardens. We are very far away from that, but I think there's a change of perception. And I think what we also need to do is to work much more in the collaboration between countries that we are trying to do with Brazil or Paraguay, because if you want to really rewild a country like we want to do, you need to work together with your neighbor countries, because if not, it's impossible. And we need to change so much regulations, and we need to develop so many new regulations. But it's something that we are trying to do and trying to move forward. Yeah.
Well, I have a question actually here that sort of relates to that, and it's what can Britain learn from Argentina, and what can Argentina learn from Britain on rewilding? Obviously, you were here. I can't believe it was, by the way, May 2022. I thought it was last year, and then I checked my diary, and it was 2 years ago. But were there any, when you were over here, was there anything that you thought, that's relevant back home, and vice versa?
Yeah, I think when we were there, one of the things that we saw is that there are, we had meetings with politicians there. We had meetings with a lot of people. And I think you are talking much more than us about rewilding. It's much more into the political agenda. It's much more popular, as I said. Here in Argentina, it's still not popular, or not as popular as there. So I think we need to learn how to engage more people into rewilding activities, because if not, it seems like rewilding is only something that can be done by an NGO in a very big place with a lot of money. So I think that's one of the things that we need to learn from you. And then from here, I think restoring some species, like you said, maybe in your country you cannot still, or you are not still prepared to reintroduce lynx or maybe wolves. But yeah, when we started with jaguars, well, when we started to think about jaguars like 15 years ago, everybody said you are completely crazy about that. It's something that cannot be done. Even when we started to work with anteater, it was, yeah, like it was going to be impossible. And with jaguars, but now the jaguars are there. So,
and they're being accepted
maybe
and tolerated and valued.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I always said also that India has a similar area of Argentina. It's a similar size. India is a little bit bigger, but there are 1 billion people. We are only 45 millions, and they live with 2,000 tigers, and we only have 200 jaguars. So we can do it. I mean, we need to coexist with jaguars. So. But I think those are the kind of things that we need to learn from one country to another. I have many heroes in Britain, like Roy Dennis, for example. He's my hero. And yeah, we learn we read a lot about him, and we share what he writes with our staff, not about also the specific technical aspects, but all the social aspects, everything that he has to tell about the problems that he encountered. Yeah, so it's we can learn a lot from you. Yeah.
Well, we have sadly have to end it there. There's so much more I want to talk about, but
okay,
absolutely inspirational stuff. I'm blown away by the speed at which you've been able to achieve this recovery, and also the socioeconomic benefits and the acceptance of it in these communities. Absolutely amazing. I'm really looking forward to visiting.
Now you have the opportunity to come, so you can see it by yourself, and we will have much more time to talk about this, because you can see most of the things that I've been talking to. So yeah, it's
fantastic.
It's a nice place.
Thank you, Sebas. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Duncan.
Okay, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Alastair, Sebas. I mean, I've had a big smile on my face throughout this whole conversation. It's brought back so many more memories of being with you, Sebas, in Argentina, visiting Iberá, visiting the Jaguar enclosure on San Alonso, and just experiencing it face to face. And then obviously also visiting Impenetrable and meeting Emiliano, the science director there, and seeing the Jaguar enclosure there. And also, actually, when I was there, is the building of the giant otter cages as well. And it really is,
exactly.
The most remarkable story. I know that Chris Tompkins herself says if there is one book to write on the story of rewilding conservation, it is the story of Iber, around securing the landscapes, bringing back the species, and also bringing back economic vitality, and all the different threads about communications with the communities, the municipalities, the provincial governments, the federal governments, or the national government, I should say. It is just quite remarkable. So thank you very much indeed. Now, we have a trip with you this September. So for those that would like to join us this year, please go to the Journeys with Purpose website. There is further information there, and you can also register your interest. So thank you both very much indeed. And for those that have joined us this evening, this will be recorded as well, so we'll be able to relive it on another platform such as YouTube. So thank you very much indeed, both of you, and to all the people that joined us tonight. Thank you. A good night.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye, everyone.